Hey, good afternoon to you. 306 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up, 4 o'clock, Lieutenant Colonel Tony Schaefer joins us. We'll talk to him about some of these big picks President Trump has made in the last 24 hours, including the breaking news this very moment that President Trump has indeed nominated Florida Senator Marco Rubio to be the next Secretary of State. That's now official. Joining us at 5 o'clock today, the border czar himself, Tom Homan, is on the program. We'll talk to Tom, find out what his plans are, and how quickly he's going to hit the ground running. Michael Whatley is the chairman of the RNC. He joins us today at 5:30. Election shenanigans still taking place right now. Michael Whatley has his attention on those. And we'll talk about President Trump's meeting with Joe Biden today. You can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Yes, that meeting lasting a little over 2 hours today in the Oval Office between President Joe Biden, President Donald Trump, their respective chiefs of staff in the rooms with them. And that was it, other than a brief moment where the cameras were allowed in to see the men sitting there by the fireplace in the Oval Office. It was a cold morning, as you know, so they got the fireplace up and running. And the wood was, by my count, it looked like 12 logs of wood on that fire this morning, all tightly packed in. It was an excellent, or it was a very well-arranged fire. I have to, all credit to the White House staff for that. And men everywhere who have put fires together will appreciate, they'll give a grunt in appreciation for that fire today. It was excellent. You see the fire, it's just going crazy behind them. You can barely hear them over the sound of the raging fire, which was a lot of fun. But you do hear them, Joe Biden speaking, and a big smile on his face. You saw every one of his fake teeth at the same time today. He was absolutely thrilled to be in the room with Donald Trump. It was a very exciting moment for him. It was also exciting for the White House staff, who Biden staffers were longing today, to get an in-person view of President Trump arriving at the White House. They couldn't contain themselves. They were so thrilled with President Trump arriving. Even CNN noticed. They said, well, look at all these Biden staffers. This is unbelievable.
We're sitting here, as Caitlin was on, looking at that imagery, and it's really stunning. Those are Biden staffers. Mm-hmm. They're in the EOB. Some of them are lower level, some of them perhaps a little bit higher. But they're there to watch a history moment being made that nobody standing there wanted.
Nobody standing there wanted. Well, they would definitely want to see President Trump. It's like, Santa Claus at the Macy's Day Parade. They were like, he's coming. They were pressing their faces up against the glass. Is he out there? It's really him. He's real. He does exist. He does exist. So Donald Trump arrived at the White House today. And here is Joe Biden telling him, welcome back. Welcome back. Good to have you back here. It's so funny because Biden says stuff like this. And what did he say during the campaign, insofar as he was the nominee at all? You're a threat to democracy. You are a danger to this country. We can't go back. And on and on and on and on. And here he is today. He seemed like he was having a great time. Like, he was very excited. He won a contest, and he got to meet Donald Trump.
Looking forward to having like we said, a smooth transition. Do everything we can to make sure you're accommodated, what you need. And we're going to get a chance to talk about some of that today. So.
That sound you hear behind him is the fire. It's clouding. It's crowding over the microphones. He's like, anything you need. You feel okay? You want to put your feet up or anything? You want a warm tea? Anything you need, Mr. President, we're here to help.
Sure you're accommodated, what you need. And we're going to get a chance to talk about some of that today. So.
Good.
Welcome
Thank you
back.
very much. And thank you very much. And politics is tough. And it's, in many cases, not a very nice world, but it is a nice world today. And I appreciate very much a transition that's so smooth. It'll be as smooth as it can get. And I very much appreciate that, Jim.
You're welcome.
Aww.
Thank you all.
Another helpful exchange with the American press. So there's President Biden, President Trump sounding very cordial. That's wonderful. Isn't that great? Isn't that funny? So, I I just can't get over it. And it's funny. Listen to President Trump's tone. President Trump has decided since the election, first of all, there's no question the American people side with him. He's got a crystal clear mandate. He wins the Electoral College. He wins the popular vote. He's reshaped all of American politics. Everybody's on his side. Anybody who wants to see Washington actually serve the American people voted for the guy. So there's nothing for him to worry about in terms of what the American people want. And so President Trump's attitude has been pretty relaxed. He's just been getting to work. If you compare the timeline, first and foremost, and in terms of how quickly he is making these presidential nominations, he is doing it at light speed right now compared to what he was dealing with in 2016. In 2016, I don't care what anybody says to you, the Trump team was kind of shocked by the way the result of the race went against Hillary Clinton. They were shocked, just like everybody else. Oh, my God, it actually worked. We became president of the United States. It actually happened. But the problem was, as President Trump was arriving in D.C., it's a city that he had spent almost no time in at the time. He was aware of politics. He knew definitely how the money worked. He knew how the glad-handing component of it worked. But he wasn't ready for this city and the way that it tried to chew him up and spit him out. And so that included people giving him bad advice, sending him the wrong people to hire. He brought in and taking time to vet these people, and it was clumsy out the gate. There was some bumpiness during that administration, which of course is why, to the extent that you've heard anybody on the right level a criticism at President Trump during the campaign, among those people who love him and want to see him come back to the Oval Office, it always consisted of, what are you going to do differently with personnel this time? How are you going to hire the right people who don't actually betray you and undermine you, and more importantly, undermine and betray the American people? How are you going to resolve that? And President Trump, you just had to take him on his word, right, that I'm going to fix that. I'm going to fix that. Well, there's plenty of evidence to suggest he has fixed that. This process has gone pretty smoothly. There's going to be a nominee here or there that you're going to say, wait, I don't know if I love everything about them. I don't know if I love everything about Kristi Noem. I don't know if I love everything about her there. But President Trump made his decision. The name was floated out there. People had a chance to talk about it for about 24 hours. President Trump decided to go with it anyway. He went with Kristi Noem. And so now she's got the big girl job. She's got DHS. She better do it well. That's a critical gig. And if you've noticed, as I noticed, if you notice the statement about Kristi Noem becoming DHS secretary, guess whose name appears in it? Not as frequently as Kristi Noem, but guess whose name appears just a little bit behind that? Tom Homan. Tom Homan's name appears a lot in the Kristi Noem statement today. You think that's an accident? You think it's an accident that Tom Homan's name appears over and over inside the Kristi Noem statement? No, it's not. It's meant to give you assurance that somebody who gives a crap about the American border is going to be holding on tight to that issue. And it does. It gives me that assurance. I'm pleased that Tom Homan will be joining us at 5 o'clock. We'll talk about what is it going to look like? What's your relationship to the Department of Homeland Security? How does this mission get run? And what are you going to do as you hit the ground running? Critical stuff. So Tom Homan's here to talk about it at 5 o'clock. But there's President Trump in the Oval Office today, really pleasant towards a guy who's been really vicious towards him. Joe Biden failed to protect Donald Trump. The United States Secret Service, which reports to Joe Biden, failed to protect Donald Trump. He was shot in the head during this campaign because of the Biden administration's failures. That's why that happened. Donald Trump has been prosecuted endlessly by the man who's sitting in the Oval Office right now, Joe Biden, the man he sat with for 2 hours today in front of a raging fire. That guy's administration attempted to destroy Donald Trump and his family members. And all of the people who work for him, random people who work at Mar-a-Lago, have been subjected to the most horrific lawfare because of Joe Biden. So I would say it probably took a lot of patience to be able to sit there and smile today if you're Donald Trump. But he realizes that what the country needs right now is bigger than Joe Biden's pettiness. It's bigger than Joe Biden's abuses of power. It's that we need to all be on the same page and, in the words of one former and now future American president, make America great again. That's what this is about. So does Donald Trump have problems with Joe Biden? Yeah. And he's talked a lot about those. But But today he decided that he would make today's meeting about a constructive conversation to the extent that's even possible on what the days ahead look like and this transition. You heard President Trump say this will be a very smooth transition. It'll be as smooth as any transition has ever been. It'll be very, very smooth. It's going to be smoother than Admiral Levine's transition. It's going to be very, very smooth. And we have some inside details on what's going on with that conversation today. President Trump spoke exclusively with the New York Post and our friend, at one time my White House correspondent, Diana Glebova, spoke with him today by phone. Headline, Donald Trump reveals exclusively to the Post about what he and Biden spoke about at D.C. meeting. President-elect Donald Trump told the Post Wednesday that he and President Biden both really enjoyed seeing each other when they sat down for an historic post-election get-together in the Oval Office. They really enjoyed seeing each other. Quote, it's been a long slog, the 78-year-old said during a phone interview as he left Washington. Quote, it's been a lot of work on both sides, and he did a very good job with respect to campaigning and everything else. Yeah, until they threw him off the ticket. We really had a good meeting, said President Trump. We got to know each other again, he added. The last two presidents of the United States discussed the transition of power on January 20th, with Trump telling Biden in front of the world's press that it would be as smooth as can be. Following the Republicans' attempt to contest the results 4 years ago that culminated in the January 6, 2021 Capitol riot. That's what the copy says here. I'm going to guess an editor added that line. I refuse to believe Diana Glebova wrote that. Trump adds, it's going very smoothly, he told the Post, of the process of picking officials for his second term, adding that the Republican transition team in the White House enjoy a, quote, very, very good relationship. Very, very good relationship. I hope. The president-elect added that he and Biden did discuss two issues on which they have differed in the past: the war in Ukraine, which Trump has promised to end almost immediately upon taking office, and the ongoing war in the Middle East. Trump told the New York Post, quote, I asked for his views, and he gave them to me. Also, we talked very much about the Middle East, likewise. I wanted to know his views on where we are and what he thinks, and he gave them to me, and he was very gracious. Trump also revealed that he and Biden are expecting to see each other again just before his inauguration, which the Democrat incumbent has already said he would attend. Quote, the Oval Office is so beautiful, and I do certainly look forward to coming back, said President Trump. I wonder if they're going to change the red button on the desk back to Diet Coke delivery before he arrives. Is that going to happen? Probably not. Democrats have a way of wrecking the White House before the Republicans arrive. Remember the infamous story about the Bill Clinton to George W. Bush transition is that the White House had removed the W letters from all of the keyboards all around the... That's petty, isn't it? And didn't they steal silverware, too, on the way out the door? Hopefully the Oval Office is still there when President Trump gets there. And if they need to install a new red button for Diet Coke deliveries, they'll do that. Although I'm certain that's ticking RFK Jr. off. RFK Jr. has had to swallow his pride on that particular sin by President Trump. President Trump loves his Big Macs and his Diet Cokes and his fish fillets, and I don't think that's going to change at all. And somehow he can work endless hours a day. I don't know how he even does that. And he has time to post on Truth Social. Pretty funny. There's Karine Jean-Pierre today talking about Joe Biden and Donald Trump meeting in the Oval Office. I'm sure President Trump's looking around and going, man, I got to redecorate this thing again.
Okay, so today, President Biden met with President-elect Trump for approximately 2 hours in the Oval Office. White House Chief of Staff...
That's more time than I've had with him all year.
Staff Jeff Zients and incoming Chief of Staff Susie Wiles joined the meeting. It was a substantive meeting, an exchange of views. They discussed important national security and domestic policy issues facing the nation and the world. President Biden also raised important items on Congress's to-do list for the lame duck session, including funding the government and providing the disaster supplemental funding the president requested. Finally, the president reiterated what he said to the president-elect the day after the election and to the American people in a Rose Garden just last week. We will have an orderly transition and a peaceful transition of power.
Thanks, Corinne. All right. Let's see. Jason's in Kensington now, line 5. Jason, good afternoon, sir. You're on the Vince Coglianese show. What'd you make of the scene today?
G'day, Vince. Yeah, and that's the difference. The Republicans tend to not hold grudges, whereas the Democrats, given any sort of niceness or any sort of, accommodation from the other side, they take advantage of it and basically kick in the teeth. And it's just, that's just how they roll. And they're obviously, if it was me in the White House for dealing with that guy for the last 4 years and what they've done to my family, I definitely wouldn't have been as nice, that's for sure.
Yeah. No, that takes, it's not like President Trump has some sort of tendency to shy away from a fight or something. He was like, he wants to be so agreeable. He's like cowed or anything. And he's just like, no, it's just not worth my time. I'm just not going to do this right now. I'm just going to be nice to the guy. We got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, I know. And it just goes to show you how spiteful and how petty the left has been the last number of years, and just all the fraudulent stuff that's gone on in the last 8 years. It's just absolutely wasted the country's time and money.
Big time, big time. All right, Jason, thank you very much. Yeah, no, it's a big difference between the left and the right. Yet another. Hey, there's some audio here out of the White House press briefing. This is Fox Business's Edward Lawrence asking Coringe to account for the fact that, hey, we thought Trump was a threat to democracy. Why all the smiles?
In the meeting, we saw a unified front related to a transition in the Oval Office meeting. But a lot was said on the campaign trail, like Trump is a dangerous threat to our country and our democracy. Was there an apology today?
I'm sorry?
Was there an apology from President Biden for the words, some of the words used?
An apology from the President Biden.
To President-elect Trump for some of the words that was used on the campaign trail.
Look, and I've answered this a couple of times about a threat to democracy in the past week. The president is going
She still doesn't know how to say the word. It's democracy. She says democracy.
To always feel obligated to be honest with the American people. What he says still stands.
His whole career, he's lied.
And it's not just him. You heard this from former staffers. You've heard it from the former chief of staff, John Kelly.
Oh, my God.
And others. You've heard it directly.
She's still campaigning.
From the president-elect, the former president, about enemy of the people. Very, very clear.
She doesn't even know what to say.
Very clear.
About Trump, the president-elect, the former president. I don't even know what to call him. I don't even want to talk about this guy. Sorry, sweetheart. You have to. He's your president now. 329. Your call's ahead. All right, these picks are coming in hot. Right now, President Trump picking some of the biggest roles in the administration. More on that in a moment. Tom Homan will join us at 5 o'clock today. He's the incoming border czar. Lieutenant Colonel Tony Schaefer is ahead on the program. We talked to him about what's going on with all of these, especially foreign policy picks. He's got a lot of thoughts on that. And then Michael Whatley is here at 5:30, chairman of the RNC. We get his insight into that meeting between Donald Trump and Joe Biden today, as well as the shenanigans taking place in some of these yet-to-be officially called races around the country. And you can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Marco Rubio, Secretary of State. That's the pick in this past hour. Tulsi Gabbard, Director of National Intelligence. That has just come out. And now this, the breaking news. President Trump has selected Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz to be the Attorney General of the United States. Here's President Trump's announcement on that last pick. It is my great honor to announce that Congressman Matt Gaetz of Florida is hereby nominated to be the Attorney General of the United States. Matt is a deeply gifted and tenacious attorney, trained at the William and Mary College of Law, who has distinguished himself in Congress through his focus on achieving desperately needed reform at the Department of Justice. Few issues in America are more important than ending the partisan weaponization of our justice system. Matt will end weaponized government, protect our borders, dismantle criminal organizations, and restore Americans' badly shattered faith and confidence in the Justice Department. On the House Judiciary Committee, which performs oversight of DOJ, Matt played a key role in defeating the Russia hoax and exposing alarming and systemic government corruption and weaponization. He is a champion for the Constitution and the rule of law. Let me talk about Matt Gaetz just as we process the news here and the way that the media portray him versus how he is in real life. Matt Gaetz is treated like a buffoon by the left-wing press. They treat him as like just a frat bro who has somehow ended up in Congress, and he's so weird. And then they make all sorts of allegations about him, which, of course, later end up being proven false, and it's just ridiculous things. Matt Gaetz, though, have you ever sat and watched him in a congressional hearing and what he's actually like, what he's capable of, what President Trump referred to his time on the House Judiciary Committee? The guy is clearly very smart. He is clearly very smart. And he can run circles around so many of the people who like to call him names from a distance, but not to his face. Matt Gaetz is a bright guy. So I'm gonna take some more time to process this pick. You know, Matt Gaetz was not on the list of people that I thought were likely at all, but not entirely surprised by it. So here we go. Matt Gaetz named as the pick. And look, what are President Trump's thoughts about an attorney general? Well, he's dealt with attorneys general when he was president of the United States who he felt weren't executing the vision of the American people, and he was upset about that. He was targeted by the Justice Department relentlessly. The deep state broadly, not just the DOJ, but other agencies, have spent years targeting Donald Trump. So it's no wonder that he's turning to people that he can trust to try and lead these agencies to actually do the business of the American people and not carry out a political agenda to hurt the American people or his political opponents, or him for that matter. So here you go, Matt Gaetz in that role. So let me table that for a moment. As always, I'll take your calls here at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Tulsi Gabbard coming in as the Director of National Intelligence. Remember, Tulsi Gabbard was a Democrat up until she campaigned for Trump on the campaign trail, and she declared that she's no longer a Democrat, but instead now a Republican and supporting President Trump. New York Times reports it this way this afternoon. President-elect Donald J. Trump on Wednesday chose Tulsi Gabbard, a former Democratic congresswoman who has become one of his most enthusiastic backers, to serve as the Director of National Intelligence. Ms. Gabbard is a lieutenant colonel in the Army Reserve who served in Iraq, has been a longtime critic of the foreign policy establishment. Her nomination is another sign that Mr. Trump intends to give top foreign policy jobs to supporters who are deeply skeptical of the effectiveness of U.S. military intervention abroad. Well, what would give them that skepticism? What would lead someone to be skeptical of the United States and its relentless intervention in other countries? Well, I don't know. Maybe the track record? Maybe that would be the reason. Somebody might walk away a little skeptical of the way that the American military is being used, the way American lives are being spent, and to what end? Is it improving American security? Is it stabilizing the globe? There are a lot of disasters out there, many of which have been exacerbated by the United States getting involved in, let's say, inartful ways. So yes, of course you should be a skeptic of the way American military power has been misused. You have every right to do that. And Tulsi Gabbard has been also, just like Trump, she's also been mistreated by the United States government. Remember, she was treated as a terrorist. She has been by the Biden-Harris administration. They've had U.S. air marshals tracking her movements on airplanes. Tulsi Gabbard, who is now about to become the Director of National Intelligence. Here she is talking about that. We've pulled up the audio of her talking about being put on the Quiet Skies watch list.
Tulsi, now, you serve this country in uniform, even getting deployed to Iraq. Thank you for going, unlike Tim Walz. And now you're being surveilled. I mean, it's a form of surveillance or hassling and intrusion upon your freedom to move by the government. What is this? I mean, I didn't believe it really when I first heard about it. I said, oh, that can't be. But how does this make you feel?
Laura, this is a clear act of political retaliation. There's no other way to put it. You laid out the sequence of events the very next day after my conversation with you on the air, warning the American people about how dangerous a Kamala Harris presidency would be. I was placed on this domestic terror watch list, which is called the Quiet Skies list under the Department of Homeland Security. The clear pain and real visceral hurt that comes from this is, as you mentioned, like many Americans, I enlisted because of the terrorist attacks on 9/11, to go after the Islamist terrorists who attacked us on that day, and to now have my own government now turn around and put me on a domestic terror watch list. It hits to the core and is the ultimate sense of betrayal. But we look at why they are doing this. It has a chilling effect. It sends a warning both to me and to anyone else who even thinks about daring to criticize our own government, which is a guaranteed protected right under the First Amendment. That we will be subject to a violation of our Fourth Amendment right to.
So you're putting in a victim of the federal government's abuse of power, the unconstitutional abuse of power. You're putting in a critical role, Director of National Intelligence. Isn't one of the joys of all of this how angry institutional Washington is about it? Isn't that one of the best parts of all of this? They're furious. They're furious. Pete Hegseth to the Department of Defense is causing the most sincere wadding of panties we've ever seen in Washington, D.C. They are apoplectic over the fact that Pete Hegseth is headed in here. And they're so apoplectic, they're making up his bio as merely, he's a television host. Have you seen all the headlines? Fox News host gets the gig. Really? Because I'm pretty certain he's done more than that. Like a couple more tours than that, actually. It's not just a Fox News studio in New York. He went to Gitmo. He did a tour there. He was in Afghanistan. He did a tour there. He was in Iraq. He did a tour there. He got 2 Bronze Stars for his service. He was, if you care about his academic pedigree, he graduated from Princeton, and then he went to Harvard for his master's in public policy at the John F. Kennedy School of Government, which up until 5 minutes ago, if it was a lefty who got their master's at the JFK School of Government at Harvard, it would be considered one of the most important things about them. Oh, look how well qualified they are. They're versed in public policy. They're the perfect pick for this role. But no, instead, he's an extremist. You see, he has a cross tattoo on his chest. Makes him an extremist, that guy. They're freaking out. Politico had a report this morning. They were quoting defense industry lobbyists who are upset about this. One of the prominent quotes in the Politico piece was, "Who the F is this guy?" And the piece, of course, is meant to make you think, oh, this guy is totally unqualified to be there. But when I see, a defense lobbyist is upset that Pete Hegseth is coming in as the Secretary of Defense, another point for Pete Hegseth. Oh, he didn't work at Raytheon for 10 years before he got the job? Weird. That's so crazy. How could we do that? That's nuts. What is it, so much better under defense contractor turned Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin? Has it been a lot better with that guy in charge? Well, no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I've got some great media reactions to this, too. I'll share those with you in a moment. First, I want to get some calls in here. I've got Chris in Frederick, line 3. Chris, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hi, Vince. Good to talk to you again. Pete Hegseth. First of all, there's a lot of young people being picked for all these posts, right? And that's kind of nice.
Yeah.
But Secretary of Defense for Pete, I had my reservations at first, but then I thought about it. I'm like, is this guy the right guy for the job, right? But Trump's a businessman. He thinks about tactics to achieve goals, right? And I think that he's brought Pete in for the first goal, that's the tactic that's got to be achieved, which is to get rid of all of these skunks in the leadership, right? That's what Hegseth has talked about forever. It's what he wrote a book about. And I think that's the job. He's the hatchet man.
He's unencumbered.
After that,
he's unencumbered, Chris. He's not tied up with any of these guys. He doesn't have personal relationships with them. This is going to be strictly business, not personal. So he's the right 100%. Guy for it. And in here, just to add some emphasis to the point you're making, here's what he just said on the what was the podcast? I want to make sure I get the guy's name right. Is Sean Ryan? Is that what's? No, I'm going to look it up. He was just on a podcast this past week. Here's Pete Hegseth saying what he's going to do. Well, what should be done. This is before he was even announced.
There's a chance to course correct it, but it would take the new Trump administration going after it really hard.
How would they correct it?
Well, first of all, you got to fire you got to fire the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and you got to fire this. I mean, obviously, you're going to bring in a new Secretary of Defense, but any general that was involved, general, admiral, whatever that was involved in any of the DEI woke shit, it's got to go. Either you're in for war fighting, and that's it, and that's the only litmus test we care about. You got to get DEI and CRT out of military academies, so you're not training young officers to be baptized in this type of thinking. And then, whatever the standards, whatever the combat standards were, say, in, I don't know, 1995, let's just make those the standards. And as far as recruiting, to hire the guy that, did Top Gun Maverick and create some real ads that motivate people to want to serve. And there's lots of other ways in which you could identify who gets promoted and what, but there's an ethos change. I mean, there's a reason people don't want to serve, because they don't trust that their senior leaders are going to have their best interest in mind in combat.
Okay, so Chris, you hear that. Does that appeal to you?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. No, I think it makes total sense. And, he'll do the job that he's assigned, hatchet man, and which is absolutely vital. And does he stick around after that mission is accomplished? I don't know. It depends on, whether he wants to and what he thinks he can do next.
Yeah, and
right?
will he need people?
It doesn't matter.
Will he need people around him that can help him navigate the corridors of that Pentagon, figure out how to work through all this? Yeah, sure. He certainly will. But he's a guy with.
But there's plenty of those people. I mean, those people are jumping out of the woodwork. They've been doing it for 4 years. Hey, and some of them have gotten fired.
Yeah. Yeah, so he just has to have a good team around him, and he can undertake a controlled burn of the Pentagon, which is what needs to happen. You need to burn out the brush in order
controlled
to get
burn. You're right, exactly.
back on track. Thank you very much.
Yep.
I appreciate that call, Chris. Thank
you.
All right, that's so Chris likes Pete Hegseth, and that Pete Hegseth audio I just played for you was from the Sean Ryan Show. That's the name of the podcast, and they just had a great. Sit down. It was 2.5 hours. I haven't sat down to listen to it myself, but I think I will. I'm going to go back and listen to some of this. But there's a lot of clips from it talking about, and the left is picking stuff out. They're like, oh, did you hear he thinks that women shouldn't be in the front line of combat? Okay. What is this? Is this a controversial view now? Is that controversial for him to say that? I'll play some of this for you coming up. Get more of your calls coming up. There's a lot going on.
The former and future president is moving quickly to fill the clown car and round out his cabinet before he changes his mind and fires them all. Moments ago, Trump announced that he has selected Fox Weekend morning show host, you can't make this up, Pete Hegseth, to serve as Secretary of Defense, because why not?
As I mentioned, Pete Hegseth got his master's in public policy at the John F. Kennedy School of Government at Harvard. Joy Reid also went to Harvard. Did you know that? She went to Harvard. She got her bachelor's there. She studied film. She's got a lot to say about Matt Gaetz, though. Remember, what happened to her Donald Trump haircut? Too many people noticed, so she shaved her head. She was ahead of the 4B movement. Now all the lefty women are shaving their heads. She was ahead of the curve. Unbelievable. Let's see here. I've got Jeff calling in from Herndon now, line 1. Jeff, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, hi, Vince. Great show as usual. This is awesome. I tell you what, I'm looking at. I was thinking of Matt Gaetz and Pete Hegseth.
Yeah.
I'm thinking Nathaniel Greene was about those guys same age when he kicked butt all over the British and kicked them out of the South. And so the point though is, in my view, I think the objective here, these guys are loyal. Obviously, one of the steps. The other thing is, they're young enough to keep the fight up. They've proven they got the backbone. They've proven they know what the problem is. And, and I compare that to, God bless him, the Honorable Gentleman, Senator Jeff Sessions, who just wasn't ready. He was a country choir boy going into the AG's office to tangle with the gangs of New York.
Yeah.
When Lieutenant General Flynn was attacked, Sessions was not there. Didn't have the innovation.
Right.
So that's what I think we're looking for. I think we have a lot to be happy about.
Yeah, no, you're right about that, and that's a key point about the youth of these guys. There's a lot has been said about President Trump's success, the biggest comeback in political history, coming back now to the White House. But what does the future hold? And the future apparently now holds a deeply talented, well-versed, experienced bench that President Trump is creating as we speak. He's not just reinventing the Republican Party. He's training the next generation. If this all goes well, we're in for a long-haul run of success. Coming up, Tony Shaffer talks to us about some of these foreign policy picks. A lot of new ones, even in the last hour.